Hello friends, welcome back. Creating dynamic forms in Angular has never been easy. In this video, I will walk you through building a reactive form that handles course details and multiple sessions dynamically. Ready to level up your form building skills? Come, let's get started. We were building the online course enrollment application, and in this video I will be showing you a complex form that has dynamic controls added to it. So I have logged in as an admin. So for example, if I go to any of this course, let's take a look at this course. In this course, this is the course overview of title, description and other metadata here. Some videos, thumbnails, even the pictures. You see this thumbnail picture? And then if you look at this, there are multiple sessions to complete this whole course. So session 1, session 2, right? All of these things, how am I adding it? So if I go to course and create course under the admin, right, I can see this form where I fill up the metadata information of the course overview, and then I can add multiple sessions. You see this whole stuff is one session, and I'm adding this whole box again and again, and I can remove it as well. For example, if I have to edit something, if I go here, it gets populated automatically, gets added, all of these things. So all of these things we're going to see today. Okay, so this is a wonderful Angular 18 reactive forms, very easy to implement, though the form looks so complex. Trust me, it is really easy. So let's put our hands on deck and start writing the code. All right, so I have given the GitHub URL for the source code in the description. You can take it from there. I have downloaded the code. So if I open this in the Visual Studio Code, okay, you will see under the component there's something called course. Under course there's a course component, and initially when I thought you guys will try it out, but we're going to build it today. So you see this. So if I run that application, right, you'll go to this admin and go here, you'll see like this, but we are going to build the form similar to how we saw. Okay, so that's the idea. So we're going to do one by one. So reactive forms, right? Reactive form is a very powerful way of building a interactive, error-free, proper form. So what we are going to do is, in order to have this kind of a complex reactive form, first we are going to use some basic things. So first thing is, we are using again Angular 18 standalone. This is the right way of doing. Going forward, Angular is even promoting only standalone is the best. ng module will become obsolete sooner or later, but for standalone we will mark this as standalone. Import, under import, what we are going to do is we are going to import reactive forms. Reactive form modules is something that you need to import, because here only we are going to develop the reactive forms. Okay, so first thing what we will do, we will create a course form variable and we will assign that as form group. We have to bring in the namespace. We bought it. Now what we will do, I'm going to minimize this coding, so I'm going to explain you as I copy paste logic by logic. So after this, what we are going to do is we are going to implement the ng on in it. Okay, so the moment you put this, what will happen is we need to bring up the ng on in it. So let's cut this and keep it little separate. We don't need to do this. We can remove this. Alright, so we will write something here, don't worry, but first we will inject the required services in the constructor. So in the constructor, if you see, what I'm doing is I'm injecting the form builder, course service, category service, activator route and router. So I'm going to bring up all the namespace here. Got it. Now here what we are going to do is we are going to start writing a form. So first thing first, before you start doing any forms, all what you need to understand is, so for example, we are talking about this course. So in this course, in order to call this API, we want all of this information. But if you carefully watch in this whole information, we are not saving any user ratings. So we don't need this. We don't need review. All what we want is this whole stuff from here to here, all of these properties, and we want array of session details to be passed in order to create a course. Okay, so based on these properties and this property, we need to build the form. The form has to be exactly like that. So that's the starting point. Okay, so always remember you are building the form according to how the API is requesting the data. Alright, so let's create the first method called initialize form, and here we are going to write the form logic. So in order to write the form logic, all what we do is this dot course form is equal to this dot form builder dot group, and then we will open this, close this. So here we are going to write the properties of the form. According to the API, what we have is we have something called course ID. So we will create a course ID property, and we just need to pass a value 0. That's the default value. Okay, so within the array bracket, if you say pass 0, it's 0 value, and you can say comma, and then you can write the validators. But course ID doesn't need any validators. Next is title. So for title, what we have is, let's say for example title, again same square bracket, default value is empty string, comma, array of validators. So in this case we have validators dot required. This field is required. We are also saying validators dot its maximum length, right? Its max length is 100 characters. Okay, this max length is 100 characters. Similarly, all what we are going to do is we are going to do for all of the rest of the properties. So description empty value required, price empty value, it is required, and minimum of 0, at least $0, right? It should be free, not a negative. That's what it calls. Course type is offline or online. Default is offline, so that's why I gave a name called offline. And it is also required. Something has to be selected. Number of seats available. If it is online, then the number of seats will be like according to the numbers. It is also required, minimum and maximum. Not more than 100 students can enroll. That's the logic. Now duration minimum is 0.5 hours. That's the default value, but you can be even 0 because the minimum value was 0. Category ID, instructor ID, a start date and an end date. Okay, so that's the default values. All of these things that you see in the initial state is called default values. Now here comes the interesting thing. The next part that we want is session details. Session details are nothing but an array of another type of data. So we will say this dot form builder dot array, and then we will initialize with an empty array. We just don't know what it is going to be inside this array. Okay, that is what we know so far. Okay, now let's say we wanted to add an array. Let's say now we wanted to add a session, because session is nothing but a bunch of information, right? So if you look at this, alright, so if you look at this, sessions are nothing but these are the properties in session, and it's an array of values, right? It's an array of the set of values. So what we are going to do right now is we are going to create a new method that returns a form group. For example, here we will create new method name called new session that returns a form group. Okay, so all what we have to do is from here we need to return a form group. Now what we are going to do is, again, this form group is nothing but whatever you similarly developed, right? So similarly session detail also will have same type of data. For example, what we will do, we are going to return this. For example, let's say here all what we are doing here is whenever we call this method, we are initializing a new form group. Okay, see, this is array of form group. Okay, so a group will have title, description, video link, video order, and of course from where all of these things are coming. If you look at this, we have session ID which will be auto populated by the API. We need course ID that we need to populate, title, description, video URL, video order. So if you look at this, title, description, video URL, video order, these are the 4 properties that an admin should enter. That's why these 4 properties are coming, and this is wrapped within a group, and we are returning a group. Whenever this method is called, we will get this value which we can push it to this array. Okay, so what we will do, we will add another method. Okay, another method called add session, and in this add session, all what we do is we need to push to this property. Okay, so in order to push to this property, what we will do, we can do like this. So we can say let form equal to this dot course dot form. We'll bring up this namespace. So I'm saying this dot form group dot get, and you're passing the property name. The property name here is session details, right? So we are getting an instance of this. So from here, what we can do, form dot push, we can say new session. Okay, so this will push a new session to this form group. So this will push a new value to this instance of this property, but this doesn't look good. Instead, what we will do, we can actually refactor this to a property. So that is called setter property or getter property. So I'm going to create a get property named session details, which means we are going to do exactly what we're doing here. So we're going to get the existing instance of this property, okay, by calling this method. So which means all what we can do is, instead of all of these things, we can say this dot session details, which will give the instance of this dot push new session, right? So both are same. Let me format this. So somebody calls this method, it will call the instance of this, take the value and push it to this form. So for clear, that's how we add multiple items to this property, because this property is a array. Look at this property is an array. Alright, now I have added another method called remove session, where it accepts an index. Okay, so an array starts with an index 0, right? So as we add items, it starts from 0, 1, 2, 3 and it keeps going as we add it. If you pass an index, you can actually remove that particular item from this array. So remove at is an inbuilt method for an array that expects an index. You see this? If you pass the index, it goes and removes only that item. So if you have like 5 sessions, you wanted to delete the third session, you can do it. That's the method is doing. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two methods called load categories and load instructor. Basically, these two methods, right, is going to call the category service, get the category items, and then assign it to the category variable. Similarly, the load instructor will call the instructor service, like the course service, instructor get instructor endpoint, get the data, assign it to the instructor variable. So what is this instructor and categories variables? That we just need to add the data. So let's go up, and what we do, we will assign two variables called course category and instructor model. That is already there in this table, in this code. So we are assigning, there is no more records, but we need to call these two methods, right? So what we will do in the on ng on init, we will call this and initialize the data. Okay, so this data is done, and we will also call one more thing called initialize form. So we'll call this, we will initialize the form. Okay, so this form initialization will make sure this is initialized and everything is good. Now, so far everything looks good. If anything is missing, we will add it as we progress. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to create the HTML. The very first thing for HTML is, let's remove this. Let's start with form. Okay, a reactive form should always start with the form tag. Okay, that's very important. Now what we do is, under the form there is some attribute called form group. So form group, you need to assign the group name, which is the form group name. So this variable is there in our component, we are assigning it to this one. Now whenever a button is clicked, okay, we are going to call the submit button, which I will come and tell you what you have to do it here. But let's start with this form. Okay, so basic understanding. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly copy paste the code don't worry, it's just an HTML with very basic things. I'll explain you. Okay, so what this is going to do is, it has the forms. For example, I'm just decorating it with the nice bootstrap CSS with the card format. Okay, all what you need to understand is, the first one it has is the input. In input, that is called title, and another input. So we have something called input, and then what you need to understand is, we have here, right? So look at this. In this main form, we have title, description, price, course type, and selected seat, or all of these things, duration, category, instructor, everything except this. So starting from here to here, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. So we have 10 properties. So we have 10 things added here. Look at this. First one is the title. So we will name this as form control name equal to title. Remember one thing, the value that you pass here for the form control name should be present here. For example, if I have something like this, here I don't have something like TEE. So obviously there is no title. This will give an error. So remember, this should always should match. Okay, so form control name is title. That's it. Remaining and all is HTML. Similarly, the next one is description. So text area will become big one. Again, form control name is description, matching it. Next is price. Form control name price. Similarly, for the course type, which is the select box, form control name, you give the name. There is nothing else, no difference. Okay, similarly, we have the seat availability, form control name. We have the duration, same. All you need to focus is matching the name that you pass here with the name that you have it in this property description. Okay, these should match. Similarly, I added for the instructor, I added for category. For instructor and category, we need to populate the instructor that we received from the API. So this is the array of instructor name. So we are looping through it and we are populating the option. Similarly, for category, we are looping through it, populating the category option. But other than that, there is no difference. The only difference is form control name. Again, start date, end date, form control name, pass the right property name. That's it. So this one, let's see how it looks. So I'm going to go to this course creation. See, there is no error and we have populated this 10 items. See, 4 plus 4, 8, 8 plus 2 is 10. So 10 item that we populated looks good. Everything looks good. Now we need to start adding this session here, right? That is what the next item. Now, all right. So now if you look at the demo, right? I was having accordion panel where you can collapse the panel, right? So for that, what we are going to do is we are going to maintain all of those information into a variable called session collapsed or not. It's an array of boolean. It means if you add n number of sessions, we will be maintaining which is collapsed, which is not collapsed. Okay, each one belongs to its own index. So we added this variable. After that, what we will do is we will come and write another method called, we will write another method named toggle collapse. It expects an index. That index, it is just flipping and it is storing it in the session collapsed information. Okay, that's what it is doing, nothing else. We are just, if you click on the third one, it will be getting number 2 here. If the number 2 is already collapsed, it will flip and say not collapsed, which means it will expand. That's the idea. So we have this data, and because we have this data, what we will do, we will add few more information. Okay, so what we are going to do is let's go to add session. So what we are going to do right here is whenever a new session, the new array is added, we will say it should be expanded automatically. So session collapse.push, we are putting a new value. When we are inserting that value itself, it's a false, which means the session should not be collapsed, it should have been expanded. Okay, similarly, whenever you remove it, we need to remove the item. that you're trying to remove. For example, remove session, right? So if the third item was removed, we have to remove the third item from the session collapsed. So we take the index, add it, we were checking the location, and we are just splicing it, which will remove the collapsed state from this array. All right, so this is done. Now let's get back to the UI. Alright, so next part is the important part where the dynamic data is getting added. Dynamic controls are getting added. So pay attention here. So what we are going to do is, we have added a div element which has the session details and a button. Okay, so let's remove this button. Let's keep it simple. Let's see how the UI looks. Okay, so the UI looks like this. So it has some data. It has just the table. So here only we are going to add those dynamic forms. So what we will do here, we will come here. So let's create a first div. Okay, here we are dealing with session details. So similar to how you wrote the form control name here, right? Similar to how you wrote all of those things, we are going to write a form control name is equal to session details, because again, pay attention, this is within this form. This is still a form control name. Inside this, an array of form group is there. Okay, so very first thing that you have to do is always, this is also a form group name. Under this, you're going to deal with an array of form group. So now what we will do, we will write a div. Let's close this and start writing here. So here we are saying ng for let session of session detail. Session detail is nothing but our property, right, which takes the instance of the existing one. You see this, it's going to the property. So this will take this reference. So this is an array. So session of this dot controls. Okay, we are looping through every single control. At the same time, we are also assigning let I equal to index. Okay, after we assign it, here comes the important thing. Every single item inside this is a form group name, right? So we need to decorate this with form group name. Okay, so form group name, we will remove this. The name here will be, we will just name it as I. I is nothing but the index. Okay, we are assigning the index of these controls to this I. We are naming, we just don't know, we can name anything. You can say card plus something like that. You can also say like that, like, so for example, card plus I, so it will become card 1, card 2, card 3. It really doesn't matter, it's just the name. Okay, you can assign however you want, but let's keep it simple. We are just assigning the name as the index value itself. Okay, so for good. Now here is what you need to populate all of the information that is related to the form group. So let's remove this unnecessary thing. Let's add the class. Okay, so here what I'm going to do is, I am going to copy paste a piece of information. Okay, and then I'll show you how that looks. So this piece of information is to toggle the button. Okay, so so there is two buttons. One button is to toggle and one button is to remove the session. For example, okay, so right now it's not showing because there is no item added. So let's add something and then we'll come and visit here. Okay, so keep this aside. Now let's come here. What we will do is, let's do this. I'm going to write a div. Okay, don't worry that I'm copy pasting basically this div, each div here is the whole set of the control. For example, here what we are going to do is, we are going to loop through the session based on the index. So if the index of this is not having data, don't show it. If it has data, it should show session title, description, video request, and video URL. And inside this, if you look at this, this is also having form control name. So let me try to tell you one more time. Session detail itself is a form control name because it is part of the main form here. Okay, here is the form, but this one is an array of form group. But whenever it is an array of form group, even though it's an array of form group, it is nothing but again a form group with multiple form control name. Got it? So because of that, we added as the form group name. Under that, we loop through the session details for each control. That's a form group. So we assigned a form group name, which is the index, and then here we have their respective form control name for 4 properties: title, description, video URL, and video order. Okay, now we need to initiate a button to add a new session. So for that reason, all what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a button here. So I'm going to write a button here. The button says add session. Whenever you click on add session, what will happen? Let's go here. It is going to call this method obviously, and it is going to create a new form group. And after you create a new form group, it is going to push it to this session detail. Okay, and it will also push an item to this one, so everything gets populated. So let's see how this looks. You see this? The moment I click on this, so we need to have a video URL, and video URL is validated, so that's why it is correct. Let's say you do something wrong. Okay, so for example, this is the first order. You see this is disabled because the video URL is also validated, and see it's enabled now. It has to be in this format because I'm going to attach the YouTube URL here. So if I click on create, you see this time we also got the session details with one array. If you add more, obviously you will get more items. So let's add it. See, I got 2 arrays. If I want to delete this, it got deleted, only one array. I can delete this, right? So this is how you format the data. Once you get this data, you know for sure that you can call the endpoint. So let's not have the log. We can remove this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do this, right? I'm going to call a method that calls the create API. So here is the thing. So I call this course service.create course. I'm sending this data because this data is now matching with the API's format. So I'm subscribing it, and then everything is good. And then if you say form.reset, it will reset all the items. Form will be reset. Okay, so this is for creating it. What if you wanted to edit the existing one? So for example, this is for creating it, right? So if I go here, if I try to come to this edit, nothing is coming, right? There is no data getting loaded, but it is supposed to load some data. So how are we going to fix this? By using the same component. It's easy. What we are going to do is we are going to do some more work. First thing is, let's save an incoming course ID. So the course ID is a number. We are going to save that, and then we are also going to have a variable called whether this is in edit mode or not. Is edit mode is true or not? By default it is false. Okay, so once I have these two, what I'm going to do is I'm going to subscribe to the event here. So in this case, what I'm going to do is here, right after initialize form. So we don't need to initialize form here. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to subscribe to the parameter and then take the course ID, assign it to this. Because the course ID is not empty, here we are checking, right? If it is not empty, then is edit mode will become true because you're trying to edit a form. And then we initialize the form, and if it is in edit mode, we need to load the data, right? So for that, we need to call a method called the load course data. That is a local method, and then we pass the course ID. So where is this load course data method? It's just another API call that we are going to make. For example, here, let's put it here. So we are going to call this method, getting the course ID, okay? What you're going to do is we are calling this course service.get course detail, pass the ID, get the information. After you get the information, we need to format the data, the date. Especially in the data, we have some dates called start date and end date. We need to format it. So I have a method written called format date. All what this format date is going to do is, this is a method. So it's going to take a string data type like a datetime type, and then it is going to convert and pass it in this format: year, month, day. Okay, so once I have these two things in two variables, I'm going to patch the form. So this course form dot patch value, you can pass the incoming data, which is the course data. Here you look at this, the course data. You can pass this, and you can also pass parameters like the properties separately. For example, start date and end date. Once you pass everything, all of this, right, all of the properties gets attached. We will also initialize the session details as an array. Later we will populate this as well. Okay, so that's the next idea. So for example, let's say just for example, right, let's say I remove this. Okay, and see what happens. I come here, not here, maybe here. Let's say I try to edit this. You see this? All of these values got populated, but not the start date and end date, because what is happening is, if you go to network, the data that we received for this 24, right, you look at this, this has data format. Look at this, it has the start date and end date, but this format is not getting recognized here. We just need to format into month, dd and yy. So that is why we had this data. So now if you pass specifically that, hey, this property goes with this data, this property goes with this data, then when you auto populate, let's go to the same 24. You see this? Now this date is also populated. Okay, great. Now this is also populated. How is this got populated? Let's take a look. So what happened is, after this we initialize this, we clear the session details, and for each session details that we have in the incoming data. Okay, so incoming data is, where is the incoming data? So where is the incoming data? If we go to 24, you see the session details for every single information here. We are saying push this form but pass the data. So whenever you pass the incoming data to this group, it will auto populate and it will be pushed here. So that's why it is automatically programmatically creating that n number of sessions. Okay, now the last part on this on submit, that we need to find out whether if you're doing a create operation or an edit operation. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to update this. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to update this. So same thing, if is edit mode is true, then we will call the update. If not, we call the create. Okay, but if it is an update, after you successfully update, what we are going to do is, we are going to call a method called view course, and this view course, right, view course is the method which will actually put the user back to the form, like back to the previous page. So course list, right, so router.navigate, we are passing it to the course list. For example, so if I come here, if I go to list, if I try to edit, okay, so after you successfully update, it's going to call update and it is going to put it back here. Okay, but did you notice, even if you're in edit mode, this shows as create course, which is wrong, right? I'm going to change this. So what we will do is, let's go to this UI, come here all the way through. Instead of this, we are saying if edit mode is true, pass update course, if not, add create course. So now if I go to the course list and try to edit, see, now it's showing as update course. Okay, so this is how the form is done. This is how this complex reactive form is done. It's really easy. You just need to pay attention. We can quickly summarize. Every single form here control is called form control name. In this is also a form control name, where it itself is an array of form group. For every single form group, it will have its own form group name. That is what these 4 property. So bunch of array, we are pushing it, and then we are removing it based on the index, and we are adding it based on the index. Okay, so that's how the update also works. Okay, so I hope you understand this dynamically adding the controls to the form and how you can build such good UI. If you have any questions, do let me know in the comment section. I hope you enjoy this video. If you have not subscribed to my channel, don't forget to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Happy coding!